Hey viewers, and welcome back to another episode of Kyle's Reviews, where in today's topic we have Migration. Now, this film is one of those Illumination films that's a bit different from other projects they've worked on. For an example, this film doesn't have much of an all-star cast, with the exception of a few others. Its animation style is in a different, more stylized look to the feature, and its opening weekend at the box office wasn't really live up to the same standards as their other films. But at least it did still turn out to be a hit, nonetheless. And even like the critics giving out some decent ratings, which was pretty surprising to see. So it got me interested, and I will say it did live up to my expectations, even if they weren't too high now. The plot of the film is centered around the Mallards, who one day, or after the winter appears, they decide to take their own type of vacation in Jamaica. While that's happening, they find themselves stuck in New York and figure themselves out of the places, meet up with some new characters, and hopefully that they can find their way to go through shenanigans, so that way they can get their way to Jamaica. And as you could tell, the plot is rather predictable, and you can easily tell that the plot makes this film one of those movies. Like, the ones that you would obviously know how the film would turn out, and how simplistic it would turn out to be. And even though that is true, but what else do you expect from Illumination nowadays? They are well known for those simplistic stories, and even for like other bits in there too. And even if they're too simplistic, there are still some qualities in it to at least feel enjoyable. And that also happens with Migration. I think the thing that makes this film, that makes the story stand up, is with its humor and the emotion. For the emotion, it's about a family and be on your side no matter where they go, and they do supply some nice cuteness into the film, which rather makes it more emotionally cutesome at times. And I'll even give that the humor, while not the hilarious comedy you would see from an Illumination film, like compared to the first Despicable Me, there were some scenes with the humor that I did find quite chuckle-worthy at times. Now, in terms of the characters, yeah, just like the story itself, they are quite simplistic, and you could tell how the characters go. But I think the one thing that gives them credit and more depth into them is not only through the emotions and even through the humor, but I think the actors is what gives them off. I can tell that they're really having a great time voicing these characters, especially with actors like Dan DeVito and surprisingly Awkwafina. Heck, this is probably one of her better roles in an anime film, even compared to another character that was in 2024, which I'll get to later in another review. But as for the characters in order, there are like Mac and Pam, who give me a lot of Ryu and Jewel vibes to know like which one's the overthinker and the other's the adventurer, and they're okay on their own and do supply their own emotions, along with Dax, who wants to be like his father, and yeah, he's an okay character as well. And still brings out more emotions than usual. Gwen, on the other hand, is a bit off to me, since she feels more like a marketing type of character. Sure, she does give off the cuteness quite well, but come on, man, she doesn't have anything much to do in this film other than to look cute just for the people to adore her. And I also can't forget about who else but Uncle Dan, who, of course, is definitely one of the better humor characters in this film, thanks to Danny DeVito, my beloved. And as for side characters too, they don't really supply much there. They just appear in one scene and that's about it, like Aaron and even Chump, Goo and Delroy. But the one character I mostly wanna talk about is Chef. And this man gives me a lot of Shaun the Sheep movie vibes. I don't think he even talks once throughout the entire film. And the only times he does speak is just him making up noises whenever he groans or just complains. And honestly, I actually do live for this character. Yeah, I know, it's a bit like a simplistic type of way to go out for a villain, but for a villain that gives me some vibes to a film that I generally like, I can consider that as a W. But of course, I cannot talk about this film without mentioning the animation, and how, as I said before, has an art style that's completely set itself compared to the other films. Well, I'm not saying it looks awful or anything, heck, it's far from it. It's perfect. I just want to talk about how more stylistic it looks to the characters in the film and the other Illumination films, where they have more of a simplistic look. In here, they're more abstracted and stylized to show off the plenty of layers as to how each character will look. Throughout the designs of the characters, and even like the way the characters move, mostly through the birds and how they fly through each scene one after another. Even like the beautiful like textures of the backgrounds, mostly in New York and some ponds, and definitely with the action scenes where the birds keep themselves into trouble throughout and making sure they get out of that shenanigans so that they get to their location. In conclusion, Migration is one of the more simple films in terms of like plot device, where you can tell how the plot goes and how predictable you can tell how it goes, and even for some bits like with the characters that don't leave out a big impression. But there are some bits in the film that does stand out from other Illumination films, like an emotional story, some generally funny humor, animation that's beautifully stylized, characters that have more layers to them than you would probably think of simplistically thanks to their actors, and even through some action scenes that do set up the intensity bar quite higher than I originally thought it would be. And before you people would ask, yeah, there's like a short film that would play after this film called Mooned, and don't ask me how that turned out because I did not watch it short, because I watched Migration in streaming and not in theaters. God have mercy on my soul, I need to watch Vector one more time. But back on track with Migration, I would say that in terms of plot, it is kind of simple, but yet it is one of the other things that makes simplicity work, and that's actually what helps this film out for me, which is enough for me to give this a 7 out of 10 and stick with that. Just hope Illumination stays in their good old standards like they did with the Mario movie. Next time on Kyle's Reviews is...
How you doing, kid?
Who is he?
Light. He's Doc's nemesis.
You gotta be kidding me.
He makes me feel safe, like I'm wrapped in a warm blanket. You know, if you're into that kind of thing.
And...
You know that it's coming. Yeah, I said it, this is about to be. You know that it's coming.
Am I living? Oh, what a funny thing to say. But there's a